Hello, it's 9 p.m. in RTD. It's time to English New Edition. For tonight headlines. We have Djibouti-China trade high-level Chinese delegation is touring in Djibouti. For the international scene in Tunisia, death tolls from Tunisia's migrant ship disaster is rise to 65 deaths. Welcome to our newsroom. Our business forum was held this morning at the Kempinski Palace Hotel. This conference on cultural and tourist investment aimed at advancing exchanges and cooperation with Djibouti in areas such as culture, tourism. The main objectives of this forum is to share but also to exchange ideas to increase investment, encourage partnerships in new growth sectors, encourage co-productions and local industrial supply, identify common interests between Chinese investment strategy and Africa's economic priorities, and create the financial and legal framework that will promote commercial and industrial success. This forum brought together senior executive investors and Chinese CEOs, ministers, and traders, but also Djibouti's entrepreneurs who, after the officials held B2B with Chinese counterparts to exchanges and see a common interest. Remember that this business forum is part of a framework in which China and Djibouti saw more rare opportunities for cooperation thanks to the Belt and Road Initiative in the last 2 years. The CEOs of Tashro China has, in an interview, explained, listen to the CEOs.
Actually, Djibouti is like my second home. We invest in Djibouti more than 5 or 6 years now, but we try to do more business in Djibouti. This time we are very happy to bring the first delegation to come to Djibouti. We are flying to here, and Djibouti is a very beautiful place. We want our people to see the beautiful view in Djibouti. Yesterday we visited Lake Assa, and today we visited Musha Island. I think all this will be very impressive for our tourists. And I believe in future more and more tourists will come to Djibouti, and it will make China and Djibouti relationship more closely. I sincerely hope that the friendship between our two peoples will be more close than before, and I believe Djibouti will have more bright future.
The Secretary General of the Ministers of Promotions and Investment has indicated that this initiative proposed by China aim to build trade and infrastructure networks linking Asia to Europe and beyond along the ancient trade route of the Silk Road for common development and prosperity. For his part, the Minister of Commerce, Hassan Mohamed Arbahim, has indicated that the main objectives of the Republic of Djibouti and China is to build a community of destiny which open up to a new type of international relations in order to build an open and inclusive world. Both events are part of the country's long-term strategic visions, including Vision 2035. It was yesterday more than 350 potential Chinese investors arrived in Djibouti with at the head of Tashro CEO, Mr. He Liuhu. These important delegations from the provincial capitals of Zhejiang are in Djibouti for 2 days with tourist programs to promote exchanges and cooperation with the Republic of Djibouti in areas such as culture, tourism, and trade, in addition to bring more travelers to Djibouti. On their arrival, the important delegations was welcomed by the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, the Minister of Environment, Urbanism and Tourism Mohammed Abdul Qadir Musa, the Ambassador of Djibouti to China Abdul Abdullahi Miguel, and the Director of Tourism Mr. Usman Abdi Mohammed. This delegation was welcomed in atmospheres of joy with traditional dances and different groups. Djibouti's ambassador to China, Abdullahi Miguel, stressed that the arrivals of Chinese friends with the greatest enthusiasm and sincerity. He says it's important for both countries. Tourism cooperation is not only a bridge for the Chinese and Djiboutians to strengthen mutual understanding and common progress, but also a base to accept each other, he said. After their arrival, the delegations from Zhejiang province went to sites with strong tourism potential, namely Lakassal and Goubet. This first visit started with Lakassal, one of the most spectacular natural phenomena on the African continent, located at 155 meters below sea level. Banks of salt and gypsum surrounded the lake for more than 10 kilometers, and a blinding white contrast strikingly with the black lava field that surrounded it. After having a meal at Lake Assal and pictures to immortalize and say I was there, directions to the Goubet, this visit is part of the promotional policy as an extension of the promotional campaign of the tourist assets of the Republic of Djibouti, led by the leaders of our diplomatic representations in China. The new Minister of Communication in charge of postal communication, Mr. Radwan Abdullahi Bahdon, received a warm welcome today during his contact visit to Djibouti Telecom. He then had an interview with the CEO of telecommunication operator, Mr. Assowe, before visiting the centers of Haramus. The minister began his outreach tour this morning with his visit to Djibouti Telecom's premises. The minister, accompanied by a member of his cabinet, was greeted by the Djibouti Telecom CEO, Mohamed Assowe Bouh, but also by all the employees who came to greet him. He then had a working meetings with the CEO, who gave him an overview of the establishment and the men who worked there. The ministers, always accompanied by the CEO, then visit the large facilities of telecommunications operator in Haramusa. He followed with interest the explanations of the engineer Mohamed Ahmed after this visit. After this visit, the minister had a face-to-face meetings with the CEO of Djibouti Telecom. The interview focused on telecommunications operators E4 to make the countries hub in this key area, he said. As part of the networking activities, the new Minister of Labor in charge of administration reform, His Excellency Isman Ibrahim Roble, made this morning's hours of the various directorate within his department: Administrative and Financial Department, Directorate of Labors and Professional Relations, Department of Studies and Planning, Directorate of Public Administrations and Central Field of State Agents, Executive Secretariat, Head of Administration's Reform, SECRA. The purpose of this visit is to get to know the managers and the staff of the directorate and to inquire about the situation. During this tour, the ministers was warmly welcomed by the director of each directorate, who introduced him to their staffs and explained their missions. They also wished to the new ministers a successful mandate these first days of contact. And with the visit of Sekha, the minister was accompanied during his tours by the Secretary General, Mr. Abdallah Ali Mohammed, the communication advisor, Mr. Khadir Umar Qalile, and Mr. Koina Umar Dahiro, councillors, and Hussein Ali Foulier, administrative and financial director. The Minister of Urbanism, Environment and Tourism, His Excellency Mohammed Abdul Qadir Musa, this morning made a tours of making contact with the various institutions coming under his responsibility. The purpose of this visit was to inquire about the missions and ongoing activities of each department. The Minister first visited the Directorate of Spatial Planning, Urban Planning and Housing, which is responsible for the instructions and the issuance of the buildings permit and the controls of public and private buildings. The Minister then went to the Administrative and Financial Department, which is responsible for managing the Ministry's human, financial, and material resources. The Minister has completed his tours with the Environment and Sustainable Development Department, which implements several projects in the field of climate change and biodiversity through the country. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, Hassan Muhammad Kamil, had today working meetings with all his staff of his department in the meeting rooms of finance. First meetings after his renewal at the head of this institution, the Secretary of State wished the Assembly Ramadan Mubarak before announcing the new guidelines of its policy, now focused on the reissue of results. The official president, for their part, congratulated the Secretary of State for Youth and Sport on the renewed confidence of the president in this regard, and in turn exposed the main problems encountered in the executions of their mission. What Hassan Muhammad Kamil has clarified and reframed to better understand their mission is sovereignty. For his part, the Secretary of State, Hassan Muhammad Kamil, wished a good Ramadan to all staff and department, and his confidence in the returns to the head from the Department of Youth and Sport. He said it is a great honor and immense privilege to be in front of you after the head of state, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, renewed his confidence by taking me back to the head of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sport. 3 years later, the time sees on balance sheet some progress has been made and some way to go, he concluded. Since the launch of the new plan of response to malaria decreed by the Ministers of Health, Mr. Mohammed Warsama Diriye, the National Institute of Public Health of Djibouti, traveled the capitals to conduct operations of spreading and destructions of larval reserves in the different districts of the city of Djibouti. To this several teams of entomologists and hygienist officers have been able to detect risky area to spread insecticide solvents over stagnant water and in septic tanks. Note that the effectiveness of this solvent is proven to eliminate mosquito larvae with almost zero environmental impact. In addition, these spraying activities are combined by the interventions of the mobile space spraying brigade, which use colossal means to stop the proliferation of mosquitoes. Their missions were to carry out large-scale vectors control activity against the proliferation of mosquito and breeding sites in order to eliminate all risks of malaria transmission. On the day of Wednesday, May 8, 2019, the localities of Warabad, located in the Wadi sectors in Obok region, received food donations. These donations of rice, flours, tomatoes, pasta, tea for 100 families was graciously donated by the First Lady of the Republic and President of UNFD, Khadra Mahmoud Haid. The distributions of food was chaired by the authorities of the regions in the presence of the Prefect Hassan Dabali Ahmed, the President of the Regional Councils Mohammed Ahmed Ismail on the spot alongside the customers authorities. The food was distributed to the families of Aga and Baladalu. At the end of this distribution, the customer's chief and representative of women did not fail to thank the First Lady for the sympathies of solidarity, especially in this month of Ramadan. In this turn, the Prefect and President of the Regional Councils reiterate their thanks to Ms. Khadra Mahmoud Haid, President of UNFD, and who at these times of the years and at the very beginnings of Ramadan tried to relieve the daily hardships of the rural population suffering from a chronic drought. With more sadness, we learned the death of Habiba Douale Awale, who died last Tuesday in Djibouti after a long fight against the disease. The deceased, who was born in 1946 in Djibouti, left behind him 7 children, including Idris Muhammad Ali, Chief of the Staff at the People's Palace. We send our condolences to the families and loved ones of the, may God welcome her in His eternal paradise. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. For the international scene, 60s of some migrants, most of them from Bangladesh, died in the sinking of their boat on Thursday night off the coast of Tunisia. The Tunisian Red Crescent reported on Saturday that this shipwreck took place in the Mediterranean Sea, where the ships at the anti-smuggling operations of the European Union, Sofia, ceased to intervene, and most of the humanitarian ships encountered difficulties to access them. Migrant survivors said they left on Thursday in a big black boat, carried about 75 people from Zuara, a coastal city in Libya, 120 kilometers west of Tripoli. Muslims responsible of the Red Crescent in southern Tunisia said. This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us.